Hey, Dad. Welcome back to Dad Space. We've been waiting for you. Welcome back. We have a guest today with us who opens his home to foster kids. An amazing story. Roman Prokopchuk is with us today. Roman is a podcaster. He does all kinds of great stuff. But Roman's coming on to talk about his dad's story in that his home has been a safe place for kids for many, many years. And he shares his stories, the ups, the downs, the hardships, the joys of being a foster parent here on Dad Space. You ready? Here we go. So a reminder too, as we jump into the podcast, dadspace.ca is our website. Everything's there, including links to our community group. We'd love to have you join us. Dadspace.ca. Here we go with Roman on Dad Space. Everybody, welcome to the podcast. I have with me a podcaster, dad, a foster parent, a great guy that's with us today to join us and share his story. Roman is with us today. Roman is he has a great story. He's really been helping with foster parenting, opening his home up to kids, and it takes a special person, I think, to do that. And Roman's with us tonight. So Roman, nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. So you're a podcaster too, which I love. I love talking to podcasters. You tell me a little bit about what you're doing in the podcast space?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to, I think, conduct an interview when somebody has a mic and headphones and, does a sound check and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've been podcasting 5 years in December. I kind of just jumped into it. I was kind of discouraged and kind of scared of the process, technology, audio editing. So I think I would have started like 5 years earlier. Outside of that, I'm a digital marketer. So when I started podcasting, I saw how the audio space can, influence buyer behavior and just, branding and adding value. So I started incorporating it in things I do for clients. So I've done like media buys on PRX network with shows like TED Talks that led from obviously me getting into the space, produce another show in the B2B space. I co-hosted a show last year with 2 co-hosts. And the show that I've had running for the last almost 5 years is an interview-based show at this point, basically documenting people's journeys and really focusing on some of the low points and how they overcame them.
Amazing. Okay, so you have a wide variety of clients then. So what do you enjoy about the podcasting space from a creative side? What does it do for you?
I think audio is the most superior delivery mechanism of content. So it's the only thing that you can truly, if you want to say, multitask. So with text, image, video, there's no way you can drive a car. Well, you can, but eventually you may crash.
Yeah.
Or be at work and, be distracted in a meeting or at your cubicle or in your home office. But with audio, you can really consume and get a good amount of consumption while you're still working on something else. Obviously, it's not 100%. So I found it to be a superior delivery mechanism, superior connector where you can actually binge the content. So for, the B2B space where a company sends a prospect a link to a show and they have a long train ride or a plane ride and they'll binge, 10, 20 episodes and get a really good idea of who that company is, their people, because, there has to be a differentiator in terms of, buyer behavior. It's not just, you're buying a product or a service. What's behind it, the people, their, their integrity, their values, things like that. And I like talking to people. I think it's easier for me in this conversation because oftentimes I'm coming from Eastern Europe. So, the society and people are very stoic. And I think raised like that, it led me to be a bit of a introvert. So it lets me kind of get out, have conversations, collaborate, network, and still get to know people on a more intimate basis than I would at like a networking thing, because I wouldn't really jump into a conversation. I may talk to 1-2 people at like an event and the conversations aren't going to be as deep. But, with a podcast, you jump on and kind of like literally it's like I would say like a Scared Straight format. Like you're really like, dumping all your story on someone and like as much value in a short amount of time.
It's amazing. Yeah, I'm kind of from the introvert space as well, and a large social gathering where I don't know anybody is intimidating and overwhelming. This, you kind of feel like you can control the space a little bit. You can kind of, it's the two of us talking right now, and obviously people are going to be listening to this, which I don't try to think about all the time, but I just love the fact that you can connect with somebody on a personal level when social media is short little bursts of content and they're here today, gone tomorrow. This just keeps going, keeps living on. I love that.
Yeah, and it's more intimate. I think social media, for better or worse, it's kind of a highlight reel of people's lives, and it's helped amplify messages and brand people and get their voice out in that way, especially utilizing for promoting podcasts. But it's also added kind of a false sense of what life really is 24/7 for people, but it's more so a highlight reel where people post only the good things, but they may be going through something you're going through, or things even worse behind the scenes. So
yeah, this is Dad Space. So we're here to encourage guys, dads of all types, all stripes, in all different situations. And as I alluded to at the beginning, Roman, just talking about your background with the foster system and helping kids. I know when we had a chat earlier, one thing that really struck me, and I went and talked to my wife about after, was the fact that the phone could ring and you have an opportunity to help a kid, help a child from whatever situation just happened. And it's like, okay, you got a few minutes to decide, and what do you want to do? And then we're going to go to the next person on the list. And I'm like, I don't know, quite honestly, Roman, how I would respond to that. I want to help everyone. I don't know how I could say no, or not right now, or you know, tell me about that phone call when you get that, and what kind of goes through your mind, you guys as a couple, as far as how you can help.
Yeah, so we became licensed May 31st of 2018, and then June 1st, the next day, we had two boys dropped off on our doorstep, and
Wow.
it was an interesting experience. Definitely like a scared straight moment, like figure it out yourselves. But yeah, like you said, you have a few minutes, you get a phone call, there's not much information. Sometimes like the information is completely like inaccurate or very fragmented, so you don't even know like the situation they're coming from or how they are, or if there's any kind of like immediate trauma, because sometimes they're being removed at that moment. So like you get a call 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then if you say yes, they drop them off at like 1 in the morning, because they have to take them to the office or the hospital to do like an exam to make sure there wasn't
Yeah.
abuse or what was it documented, and then go the next day as well. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to scramble in a way, depending on the age of the child. You obviously have to have the space for them to sleep, an extra bed, clothing. Usually we have children from newborns to about, I would say, 3-4 years old, so preschool age. And it's one of those things where they come into a stranger's home, and you have a few minutes to, let's say, an hour or two, to get them as comfortable as possible and get them to bed. And they've experienced like one of the most traumatic things up to that point in their life. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, and creating kind of and fostering an environment where they can feel comfortable to kind of heal and kind of I guess forget about where they came from or what happened to them. And yeah, I mean, sometimes the changes are instant, sometimes it takes a few weeks, but in our home, in terms of like fostering a loving environment, you definitely see the changes and the healing to the right direction.
Again, and the other thing you mentioned too when we chatted before was, the fact that in some situations these kids can't leave the general area, the city, the state. There could be restrictions on travel. So you guys, as a family, you kind of are homebound yourself. Like, you can't just pick up and go to Cancun for a week. Like, you have to plan your life too. So you're really not just sacrificing space in your home and in your hearts for these kids, but it's also your time and everything else. Everything's wrapped up in this.
Yeah, and Most people don't know because most people get their idea of what foster care is, foster parents from TV and film and media, which oftentimes don't portray foster parents or foster care, the system. Well, the system's a whole different story because I have a few things about that, but really foster parents in a positive light, like usually there's stereotypes like they're doing it for the money, which there is no incentive. Children in my state get a stipend for food, clothing, activities, stuff like that. So this isn't a for-profit endeavor.
Yeah.
So in that sense, but yeah, like you said, we need approval for everything. We can't even give children like over the counter, like vitamins, like gummy vitamins or anything like that. We need to get a doctor's script to do that. If you are going out of the state for more than 2 or 3 days, you need approval from the biological parent. If the biological parent says no, then it has to go to a judge. The judge has to release an order in order for you to leave. And there's this whole kind of legal process for like every single thing you want to do. So yeah, it's oftentimes tough because you have to work around kind of like these activities and the fact that each child has to have a visit or has a visit with either a caseworker, an adoption worker, a law guardian, a nurse, and anyone else involved in the case. Sometimes there's like 6 or 7 people involved in the case, and that's 6 or 7 visits you have in a month that you have to work into your schedule, take off from work, move around other things. So it's very hectic, especially when you have a lot of children or children from different families. We had at once we had 5 children under the age of 4 from 5 different families. So it's everything multiplied by 5, which is absurd.
Wow.
And during COVID, it was even crazier because they basically dumped all responsibility on the foster parents. So caseworkers like did really nothing. I mean, some don't do anything as is now. Some are good, some are bad. But we had to facilitate all the visits via Zoom and
oh wow.
And basically monitor it. Oftentimes we didn't have contact with the biological parents or guardians because they were not given contact with us for a reason. They were either hostile or violent or the history of mental illness, and we had to kind of like work around that and kind of like make that work. And that was interesting as well when 2 people are trying to work from home, taking care of 4 kids, and then managing all these Zoom visits and calls as well.
So if somebody's listening to this, Roman, and they're thinking about opening their home as foster parents, we've already shared a few things that they might not have considered fully, but what other information would have been helpful for you guys when you were deciding to go down this path? What would you have wished you had known maybe earlier on?
That you're on your own more so than the system or the office in your county that you got licensed out of tell you. I would find a group of foster parents, like a foster care support group, because they know the situations that you're coming from and they really understand and empathize with you. Because it's one thing obviously to speak with someone that hasn't fostered or had somebody in their life that was a foster parent or a foster child. They may be sympathetic and kind of surprised or shocked in terms of what the kids go through, the system, cracks in the system. But it's a different thing where like you're experiencing something in a case, one of your kids' cases where another foster parent, like if you're meeting once a week or something, once every 2 weeks for coffee or dinner or lunch or whatever, can empathize and understand. So it's kind of like building a support system, I think, is important. The process also could take a little while depending on how many jobs you had, if you moved out of state, because they look at work records and criminal records out of state, and sometimes that's harder to get, so that prolongs the process. So it took us like 10 months to get licensed. They do a case study about you, your family, whoever is living in the home. Obviously it may be more than a husband and a wife. There may be grandparents or whoever lives in your home. Everybody has to be background checked. They do kind of like put together a story, who you are as a family, your morals, your ethics, why you want to foster, like your ideal like family unit. What do you foresee? It as and how it's, going to happen or play out. So that's kind of one thing. And then you get licensed as individuals, and then also your home needs to get licensed. So somebody comes out, checks for safety, checks for the amount of children you can have in your home. So all of that obviously takes a while. So like I said, it took us about 10 months to get licensed. And you also have to take in class. So it was about 9 weeks. At night, you have to go one weeknight for 3 hours, and they kind of go through training, formal training through a book in terms of what to expect. Kids come in and speak, older kids that are now in college, other foster parents, other people within the system that you'll experience in terms of workers. So it's a fairly drawn out process. Like if you're interested in becoming a foster parent or more information about it, usually if you are in the US, you can go to like your local county office, Division of Child Services, and usually a few times a month they have orientation sessions. So you can sit in on an orientation session and really kind of get an idea of what it is, a better idea, and see if it's something that you're able to do. Which, if you asked me 5 or 6 years ago, do you see yourself or as a foster parent to even one child, I would say like, no, you're crazy. But let alone in the time we've been doing it, 4 years and a month for 27 kids. And I would say no. So you don't know what you're truly capable of, or if you are hesitant, it's definitely rewarding. I say it's definitely like like you're emotional masochist in a way, because each child either leaves, goes back, something happens. Obviously, in the event that you're foster to adopt, you get to adopt a child in certain situations, but they're kind of always in a way like ripped away from you, either going back to family or other homes. And you're really like thinking about what's going on with them. Are they safe? Are they being taken care of, and how they are? So right now, there's 20 something humans out there that we kind of worry about and, kind of stress about. So
like maybe what are some examples, maybe Roman, of maybe the shortest time that you've had someone in your home versus maybe the longest time that you've had?
Yeah, shortest would be like 3 days. It was
Okay.
it was basically the children were taken. It was like some weird situation that they were going to go home after the weekend, so they needed a like a temporary place. We also sometimes do short term, which is called respite. So respite is if another foster parent, like let's say we talked about going on vacation and they don't get approval, but it's everything's booked, they're still going. The foster child needs to be placed with another licensed foster parent. So in that case, it's called respite care. So if they go on vacation for a week, 2 weeks, or if there's a family emergency, a health issue, we've had kids for 3, 4, 5 days. The longest we've had a child was 2 years. That was kind of the longest placement.
Wow. And like, so as a foster parent, how do you create space between you and your foster, but at the same time be welcoming and loving and create that environment of safety for them? Like I'm looking at this, Roman, from my point of view. Again, I'd want to adopt everyone. I'd want every foster kid possible I could get. I'd want to love them all equally. I would never want them to leave, and I'd max out my house in a short amount of time, because that's just my heart, and I sense that from you as well. There's a lot of love there. How do you create a healthy environment for yourself and the foster that are in your home?
Yeah, I think it's just like calculated chaos.
Hmm.
We never have really that much alone time. We do have schedules. I think if you are a foster parent or looking to be one, I think having a schedule is one of the most important things you can do for the kids. It's something really small, but something that's really beneficial right off the bat if you have a child place, because oftentimes the children are neglected, they're malnourished, they don't know when their next meal is. So sometimes they come with food hoarding issues. So you put a plate in front of them and they feel like, they may eat in 4 days. So they start shoving the food, and to the point where they get sick
Wow.
and, have to throw up and stuff. So having that schedule where it's like, it's okay, we're going to eat breakfast at, 9 a.m. if you're not in school or daycare, and lunch at 1 and dinner at 6, and keep that as regimented as possible, and then bedtime is at so and so time. It really kind of helps them and makes them feel safer and more secure, that kind of they know what's coming and to expect from the day, because situations are a little crazy, but like definitely having a schedule, definitely having a bedtime. Children are obviously in school or daycare, so you have that time to work, run errands, stuff like that. They have some kind of activities somehow, and I think it's important. In our class, they were people that were single, that were looking to become foster parents, but having a spouse that's supportive and kind of in it with you, and you're both kind of tackling it together, whatever the issue is, and the daily stresses, because we've had things like, parents with mental illness where, they've made stuff up, or the judge just didn't want to deal with it at all. And we've gotten a court order specifically to return a certain pair of socks, because the biological mom said we were keeping the socks from her and she wanted them back. So a court order was needed to order us to return these pair of socks, because basically the judge was like so frustrated with it. So he was just like pander to the situation because she's mentally unstable. And it's frustrating because, it's a legal order, but it's just like, nonsense.
A pair of socks. Wow. Okay. So what do you see for yourself down the road, Roman, with this? How is this a long-term thing for you guys? Are you going to remain foster parents? Like, what is there an end game to this, or is this really just going to continue for this foreseeable future?
In one way or another, we sold our home last August into September, so we're renting and trying to figure out what we want to do. If we go out of state, that license obviously doesn't carry over. So the state we move to, we would have to get relicensed, kind of the process all over again. We have a child currently with us that we basically got right out of the hospital. He was in the NICU. He was born with drugs in the system. He was born 4 pounds. They didn't know if he was going to make it past week 1. And the second week, we got to take him home straight from the hospital. He's going to be 2 next month. So he's in the adoption unit. So we're kind of working on that, praying about it, doing everything we need to do to have that go through smoothly. And, hopefully in a few months, we get to adopt him. We also have obviously other children with us. So for the foreseeable future, yes, at some point, maybe our life may be more nomadic. I do have a camper that potentially we can take the show on the road, because I work remotely, so that would kind of be cool. And to my wife potentially homeschooling our son for a little bit, and him experiencing kind of history firsthand and different things in terms of like learning hands-on. So in order to do that, obviously you can't still foster, because you can't have the kids out of state. The kids have visits, and you have to have a stationary point, a residence that's registered and licensed. So you can't just travel across the country in a motorhome. So we'll see. But for the foreseeable future, while we're still in the state and everything else is going on, we still continue to do it. But even if we didn't, at some point, potentially like mentoring foster children, I still try to advocate now, and I see in the foreseeable future advocating for foster care reform and an overhaul of the system, both on a state and federal level. So in one way or another, I still foresee myself and my wife being involved in one way or another in the process or the system itself.
Nice. So Roman, what kind of feedback or suggestions do you have for dads listening today that maybe they're like we said, looking at the foster system, or maybe they have their kids and they're just kind of doing life, and you just need that little bit of inspiration in their life? What would you say to them from your point of view, just about raising kids in this world that we're in and all of the things that you've seen? what can we do to encourage guys to create that safe place for kids like you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things I think for a foster child is having a male role model, or a strong, male figure to look to, because almost every child we've had in our home has not had a father in their life. The mom was around there, they got taken, and just a chaotic, family structure. So there's been no male role models, and unfortunately, in the U.S., like last year, the year prior, I learned an interesting statistic. I believe like 60 to 70% of everyone in the criminal justice system that are incarcerated has been in the foster care system in one point or another in their lives. So obviously it's, failing kids in one way or another. It's not getting through. The sad thing is it's like a cycle. So a lot of the time, the child that's in the system now or in place with us, their parents were in the foster care system. And then, the child's grandparents were in the foster care system, and that basically, mental health issues, substance abuse issues carried over, and the cycle was never broken. So it's important in one way or another. Obviously, if you have biological kids, and seeing kids being impacted, just hanging out 10-20 minutes with them, reading a book, building a Lego, playing outside, throwing a ball, it's very impactful, especially for little kids. A lot of people don't think 2, 3, 4-year-olds remember, but some kids that have been reunified, we have a good relationship with their biological parents, and we actually get to see them a few times a year. We have children, we even babysit and help out their biological parents, and have
Wow.
kids and family and their parents over for like Sunday dinner and stuff. So the kids reminisce. So like, remember when you did so and so with me, or you went so and so, and they kind of light up about it. Or we took a trip to so and so and we learn about this one thing. So regardless of how insignificant you think like what your impact is, like as long as you're present and
Hmm.
active and kind of like playing a role and raising the children, and regardless, like, yes, there's work, there's life commitments, busy schedules, especially in the US and in the Western world, Canada, other places. But regardless of your schedule, I think with parenting and anything else, if it's really important to you, you'll find a way and find the time. So even like I said, a few minutes, if you get home late, possibly like a bedtime story or like a recap about how the child's day was, because even though you don't think it's impactful, like that one-on-one time it's really important. We actually try once a week. We've been starting to do it. So individually, like we'll keep one of the kids from daycare and have like an activity day. We'll take them to Six Flags or like a water park or like a safari or a museum, and have that one-on-one time. Obviously do things with them together, but just having that one-on-one time, I think, is really important.
That's amazing, because the kids are sponges, right? At this time of their life, they're just soaking it all in. They're building their future. They're building their thoughts of what a dad looks like, what a mom looks like, what a home looks like. And for them to come into your home and experience some of this love and attention is going to help shape their future, right? And maybe break that cycle. And that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, they're soaking it in, bad or good. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So it's
exactly. Yeah.
whatever you put out there, that creates somewhat and adds to kind of their compass. And majority of the kids that we've had, they've experienced more at 2, 3, 4-year old than most adults will in their entire lives. So it's one of those things where, like, if you can help out, obviously, if you can't foster, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities where you can be a mentor, spend an hour or two with, young kids, teenagers that are in the system. That can obviously be impactful as well.
Just be more aware of your community, more aware of how you can step up as a guy. Again, like, I'm an empty nester now. My kids are gone. I've got some time. Maybe there's opportunities for me now to focus on someone else and help. Right. And I think as men, we just all need to step up in our communities and be a better leaders, be a better examples like you guys are doing, and just be there. Like you mentioned. I think that's a huge thing that anybody listening to this can do, today, this week, and put it into practice like you guys are doing.
Yeah. And then like what's really going on? Like if you have kids, maybe find out maybe in the kids class, there's kids that are in a foster care system or, foster parents on your street or, your community, your church, your place of worship, like, get to know them, see what they need, see like what their frustrations are. Because it's one of those things where like, if it doesn't affect you, it's like out of sight, out of mind. But like when it becomes important or it impacts your life, then you start worrying about it or caring about it. Obviously, like, me being Ukrainian and the war in Ukraine and having family there, I have a direct tie-in, but it was like, the media goes through cycles. February, March, everything was Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. And now it's like focusing on other things globally. So when it doesn't impact you, it kind of just fades away. So it's just like you said, being mindful about what's going on in your community, because there's a lot of people living life like you're not living. You may have roof over your head, food on your table, a steady income, but a lot of people are in poverty or kids in the system that need someone or a positive role model. And like I said, foster care, the goal is reunification, unless obviously the case moves to adoption. So it's a temporary situation, but a safe space, like I said, to heal and really grow. And while they're there, make them feel loved. So when they do go back, hopefully they're going back to a better situation, but they had what they've seen in your home, what like a family unit should be in terms of, caring and how, children should be treated.
Excellent. That's really good, Roman. I really appreciate your time tonight. And one thing about podcasting that I love is when somebody finds a podcast or an episode or a guest, an interview that they like, they want more. They want to know more. So for your podcast, Roman, how do they find you after they're done here? Where do they go?
Yeah, you can check out the podcast website. So it's the podcast, the Digital Savage Experience. So it's the digitalsavageexperience.com. You can obviously Google my name, Roman Prokopchuk. The last name is a little tough, Eastern European, but like the first Roman Prokopchuk that shows up. Honestly, Roman is a very common first name in Eastern Europe, and there are actually quite a few Prokopchuks that I'm not related to. But if you Google my name, you should be able to find me as well.
Yeah, we'll put some stuff in the show notes too as well, so people can find it. That's great. Roman, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it, making time for us. Probably got things to do tonight, and the fact that you took time it's awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, Roman. Everybody, thank you for listening to the episode tonight. And go check out Roman's stuff and take a listen to his podcast. You can go there right now. We're done here. Jump over and listen to Roman's podcast. And give him a like, a follow, a share. Give him all the things. Show him some love. Thank you for demonstrating love in your home, Roman. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Dad Space today. Go check us out on all over social media, YouTube, all that great stuff. You can find us as Dad Space Podcast. Real simple. Dad Space Podcast, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube. Email us, dadspacepodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for great guests to come on the podcast. If you have any feedback for us, what do we do good? What do we need to work on? Let us know here at Dad Space. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode. It's coming up right now. Just let this keep playing and it'll automatically come. Follow us on your podcast app for more. Cheers. To you, Dad. Thank you.